Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our overnight action report here at MarketStream.live. My name is Joseph Cusick with the Cusick Group. Securities offered by MoneyBlock. Looks like right here in the United States in pre-market, we're trying to keep most of the major indices in the green. They're slightly up, right above just break even. But taking a look at the overnight action, and specifically in Asia, Japan's Nikkei shed about 0.3%. Now, that's that's a lot better than what was expected when you see that 7 sectors were in the red. Consumer discretionary was leading the downside, down 0.9%. We're also seeing the communications sector down about 0.5%, as well as financials down about 0.4%. Now, technology and consumer staples, that was the silver lining right there. Tech was up about 0.4%. As well as staples being up 0.3%. So that's where the outperformance was coming into play in the Japanese markets. Now, the move down did mask some somewhat positive or better than expected economic data. Specifically, household spending was a little bit better than expected. It was only down about 0.4% year over year. The expectation was right around 0.6%. And we also saw that retail sales were better in Japan for the month of October, only down about 0.1% year over year. So beating expectations on some economic data, that was a silver lining that we saw in Japan. Now taking a look at Hong Kong, and the Hang Seng slipped about 0.4%, despite gains in about half of its components. What was weighing on the market were financial and energy names like China Life Insurance, Bank of East Asia, HSBC, and Hang Seng Bank, all falling between 0.5% and 1.9%. We did see CNOOC, which is a large state-owned oil entity in China, as well as PetroChina, also take it on the chin, down around 1.7% and 0.8% respectively. EWH is the ticker symbol that I watch for the Hang Seng. Went out last night at $20.90. The options are still pricing in the potential for the underlying EWH to move about 4%. Now, taking a look at China's Shanghai Composite, the People's Bank of China again moved up the fix on the yuan for the second straight day. Now, of course, this follows a pullback in the yuan of about 3.7% since the election. So they're firming up the currency right now, while the yuan has been sliding to the downside. Also, there was an interesting Financial Times article out that was discussing that China might issue new rules as far as foreign M&A investment going forward. Very interesting. Want to keep a close eye on that. Now, FXI is the large cap ETF that I take a look at that tracks large cap stocks in China. Went out last night at 37.23. The options are pricing in the potential for the stock to move this week, still roughly around 2%, around 76 cents. And vol has not popped even on those headlines that we saw from the Financial Times. Now, finally, taking a look at India's Sensex, ticked up about 0.2%. It had help from the automakers. Suzuki, Hero MotoCorp, as well as Tata Motors, all gained between 0.9% and almost 4% in the session. Now, EPI is the ETF that I watch to track as well as potentially trade the stocks that are trading in India. It went out last night at $20.01. The weekly options are pricing in that the stock could either go up or down about 2.5% or 45 cents. Vol is on the uptick there. Now, turning our attention to Europe, the session is open. The German DAX right now is trading up about 0.2%. We're seeing some heavyweights on the move. We're seeing Lufthansa, Continental, Adidas, and Bayer all amongst the leaders holding up the German index. Their gains are between 1% and 1.5% currently in the sessions. Now, where we are seeing some lag is going to be in exporters. Volkswagen, Daimler, and BMW are all down between 0.8% and 1.6%. So that's why we have just a slightly in the green move to the upside for the German DAX. Now, EWG went out last night. That's the ETF that tracks the German stocks. went out right around 24.71. The weekly options are pricing the potential for the stock to move either up or down about 1.8% going into the end of the week. Volatility is relatively inexpensive there. For you new viewers, all that means is that there's not a heightened expectation of big violent moves. Doesn't mean it can't, but it's not an expectation. Now turning our attention to the UK. The FTSE is lower by about 0.4%, with miners and energy names contributing to the weakness. You have Royal Dutch Shell, BP, both down about 2%. On the flip side, you have home builders that have been moving to the upside. Really was coming out on reports that there were higher than expected mortgage approvals, as well as October mortgage lending was a little bit higher. Came in at about 3.3 billion. The expectation was around 3.2 billion. So you're seeing some positive action in the home builders, but the weakness in the energy names really weighed on that. We'll see if that weighs on the ETF that tracks these stocks and many more in the UK. The EWU is the ETF. 29.91 is the actual where actually the stock went out. We'll see if the options are pricing in the potential for a 1% move. So we'll see if that actually still transpires. The French CAC. French CAC is now climbed about 0.8%. You have financial heavyweights BNP Paribas. They've contributed to the advance, as well as a consumer name, L'Oreal, up about 1.9%. EWQ is the ETF I follow there for France. Went out at 23.14. We'll see if what kind of movement we're going to get. But right now, the options are telling me that going into the December expiration, right now the plus minus is around 73 cents or around 4% being priced in for either up or down movement right now in the options in EWQ. Finally, Italy. The MIB has jumped about 1.4%. You've seen that the financials are starting to firm up, pick up the pace to the upside. There's no major notable banks or institutions that were moving to the upside considerably. But again, with that referendum on December 4th about whether or not to remove some of the powers of the Senate, we're going to watch that closely. That is over the weekend. But EWI is pricing in the potential for the stock to move about 2.3% going into the weekly expiration. That's around 51 cents in the $20.85 stock. So we'll watch EWI to keep track of what's going on in Italy. And volatility is on the move. You saw IV move up overnight, and that should continue going into the highly anticipated referendum vote on December 4th. Okay, folks, that's it for the overnight action. We're going to come back at 9:30 Eastern time. We'll do the opening bell, where we're going to cover what's going on the opening bell, what's hot. Also, we're going to keep an eye on oil. Oil is extremely volatile this morning. Again, a lot of headline risk. So join us at 9:30 Eastern time for what's hot now in the open, where we'll cover everything in the opening bell. See you then.